let's get down to business to review Mulan. Um, I could have been a little more enthusiastic about that, but I don't really have a camera that could see me dance and do crappy martial arts moves, unfortunately. Um, so I think you can tell by that opening that you guys can tell what I'm reviewing. I wasn't really sure what I was going to review this week actually, but considering the fact that I wasn't able to see Incredibles 2 this week, I kind of figured it'd be an okay idea to review Mulan instead. And I kind of figured that it makes sense because that movie just hit its 20th anniversary earlier this week, and I can't remember what the exact date was, but I kind of thought it'd be an idea to revisit this movie because well, actually the 20th anniversary kind of saved my ass from having nothing to review this week. Um, so honestly, since this movie is so well known and it's such an iconic late 90s Disney film, I don't really think I need to go over the plot line all that much. It's kind of simple, a teenage outcast, she's trying to find her place in society. She ends up going to war to keep her father from, you know, dragging his crippled body into this fight and yeah, that's basically the basic plot line. But honestly, this movie it kind of reminds me of some of the arguments and stuff that was kind of in A League of Their Own. Even though that's a sports movie, it does deal with the idea of gender roles in society and how sexist the era in history was towards women in some ways. The only difference is that A League of Their Own was in 1940s America and Mulan is in ancient China. So huge difference in time frame, but the main moral about women can be as strong as men, that message is still that message is still there. It's just done in a more lighthearted comedic way in A League of Their Own. Honestly, there are a lot of aspects of Mulan that remind me of a bunch of other movies, but I'll try to keep the movie references to a minimum because I'm not trying to make this a hodgepodge. I'm trying to make this specifically about Mulan. So I think the best thing I can say about this is that there it does poke fun at gender roles. It does have some adult jokes in there, mainly from Eddie Murphy's character, but they do it in a way that's funny but family appropriate. They manage to do kinds of jokes that are funny, are adult, but not in a way that's too messed up or too mature for a kid to stomach it. Like one example is when Mulan is going to bathe in a pond and her buddies go running into the lake, and Mushi's like, "Oh no! There's a couple of things I know they're gonna notice," and then he just tries to create some sort of diversion. Or the scene where he looks at Mulan in the her father's uniform and is like, "I can see right through your armor," and then Mulan just slaps him. And it's just like, yeah, maybe we should try that pickup line on a woman saying, "I can see right through your clothes, baby." I'm pretty sure that would work perfect for anyone hitting on someone. Or they'd get a shot to the groin or a slap in the face if any guy tried that pickup line. I actually want to see some douchebag guy use that line just so he can get his butt handed to him. um, I digress. So yeah, and I think that there are actually quite a few powerful scenes in this movie. One is when Mulan is watching her father get ready to go to war. And there's several instances in that whole sequence of events where you can see the father's kind of second guessing his decision to fight. But because it's what society is saying men must fight, the father feels like his hands are personally tied, even though he could just refuse. You know? And it's actually one of the more powerful scenes is when you see Mulan's father and her mom argue over the dad's decision, and the mom just kind of storms off in this "I can't reason with you anymore, honey" sort of mindset, and the father kind of has this look of reflection and maybe a little bit of regret and second guessing of what he's doing. and there's no dialogue in that scene. That scene proves once again that you can have a very powerful moment in a movie without having a scrap of dialogue involved. And I think what Mulan is also the girl power element of this movie is very strong, but I think it also kind of works in what Disney usually does with their stories is talking about characters that have this walk and a talk that just isn't normal in the world that the character inhabits. You see that in really any Disney movie. There's definitely that. There's definitely a lot of powerful imagery in this movie, and I also kind of admire how this film, even though it's a family film, it's not afraid to get dark. I mean, the opening sequence where the Huns crash into China, where that soldier gets confronted by Shan Yu, and Shan Yu's like, "Everyone knows I'm here." Groovy. Okay, he doesn't say that, but he's like, "Perfect. They know I'm here," and you can pretty much assume that guy just got killed off screen. And the villain, even though he's not as memorable or as charismatic as some of the other Disney villains out there, he still has a few badass one-liners that are pretty intimidating. And Shan Yu's design, it is pretty good. He's basically this giant boulder-sized muscle man who is trying to cripple China. And yeah, I will say this: this is pretty much the only complaint I have with the movie is that the villain, while he is decently written enough to be a shallow threat, I feel like he could have been a little more stronger. He could have been stronger. I think if they made him more passionate and if they made him more charismatic, I think that would have worked. I think if they tried to make him as this very I think if they tried to make him this more charismatic villain with a strange, sick charm to him, I think this movie would be it'd be amazing. The movie is amazing, but I think having a stronger villain would have made it, up there with Lion King and some of the other Disney greats. Um, and then we also have the love interest, Li Shang. I didn't even know Shang had a first name until I saw the movie yesterday with my friend Molly, but apparently his first name is Li, which is it's a very strong name. Um, there is a scene where he's supposed to be the leader of the army that Mulan joins in, and I love that montage of the soldiers trying to get the hang of being warriors. And I kind of like how they're pretty. All of them are. Mulan and her friends are pretty incompetent at the training, but then they eventually, over time, become better and they get stronger. Which I really like that. That's another powerful scene is when she retrieves the arrow at the top of the wooden pole and she's pulling herself up. She's sweating. She's breathing heavily, but she still gets up to the top and perseveres. That again, another very powerful scene in the movie. And the scene where Shang spares Mulan's life after realizing that she is a she. And he says, "A life for a life, my debt is repaid." And that's actually a very dark line, to be honest. Like, had this person not done anything of value, I just would have killed her. And I think another thing I do have some issues with the movie, another nitpick, is that there are scenes where Mulan uses her normal speaking voice, and no one bats an eye. Like the scene where she's telling Shang that, "Oh, I think you're a great captain." I don't understand why that didn't arouse any suspicion. I mean, maybe I don't know. Honestly, there are things I could complain about in this movie, but I can't really think of anything that's not even more petty nitpicking than what I've already come up with. I mean, this movie was actually came out around a time where Disney was starting to regain its footing because Pocahontas wasn't a big hit. Hunchback was a little different, good, but I think that movie got more respect over time. Hercules has its detractors and its fans, but I think Mulan was like the last two one of the last two 90s Disney movies before Disney kind of hit a slog fest in the early 2000s. But overall, if you haven't seen this movie yet, go ahead and see it. And if you've seen it already, see it again. There is a sequel to this movie that was a direct-to-video movie. Don't watch it. Don't. It's a joke. It's nothing but a joke. This movie is a great animated film that could give Lion King. Well, it's a great film that fits in nicely with the other Disney films of the 90s. The sequel, the hell with it. So, this is so thank you all for watching and enjoy your hour and a half long movie and enjoy the prospect of Mulan's grandma wanting to have a sexual fling and bang the shang. See ya.